Doug Feith, former Undersecretary of Defense and author of War and Decision. You've done quite a few interviews on your new book in this last week or week and a half. Are you surprised at the reaction you're getting?
Not particularly. I think that it's getting a lot of attention because I'm challenging a lot of what people thought they knew about the decision-making leading up to the war and the decision-making for the war on terrorism, and it's controversial.
What are some of the myths that you're challenging?
There's a widespread view that this administration came into office hell-bent on war in Iraq, that people wanted to go to war in Iraq in order to spread democracy by the sword, that the administration was militaristic and ideological and close-minded and didn't consider options short of war, didn't do planning for the post-war. Part of the conventional wisdom is that administration officials were duped by the Iraqi exile Ahmed Chalabi into believing that there weren't going to be any problems in the post-war, so no post-war planning was done. All of those aspects of the conventional wisdom are wrong, and I discuss it at some length in the book, what the actual record shows, because what I did in the book is I focused on the actual written record, the memos that were sent among the key administration officials and the meetings that they had at which I took notes at the time. And I tried to write a book that's accurate, and it does challenge the conventional wisdom.
Well, you write that one of the original post-9/11 meetings that Iraq was brought up. It was brought up by Secretary Rumsfeld. It was brought up by President Bush. Why was Iraq brought up so quickly after 9/11?
Well, Iraq was front and center on the U.S. national security agenda for about a dozen years. I mean, certainly since the summer of 1990 when Saddam invaded Kuwait. Iraq was the only place in the world when President George W. Bush took office where U.S. servicemen were being fired at every day. I mean, we had pilots who were patrolling the no-fly zones over northern and southern Iraq, and Saddam Hussein's forces were shooting at them virtually daily. So Iraq was on people's minds. I review in the book the debates about Iraq policy within the administration before 9/11. And no major decisions had been made to change U.S. policy, but it was being debated when 9/11 occurred. So it's not at all surprising that when 9/11 occurred, given Saddam's hostility and record, that questions were raised: is Iraq involved in 9/11, and how is a major state supporter of terrorism like Saddam going to figure into the strategy that was developed to react to 9/11 and prevent the next attack?
You also spend quite a bit of time in this book talking about the externals and the internals. What are they, and why were they significant in deliberations leading up to the Iraq War?
Well, the term external was coined because the members of the Iraqi democratic opposition to Saddam were the Iraqi exiles who were living outside the country and the Kurds who were living in the autonomous area of northern Iraq. And because the Kurds were not in exile, we needed a term that covered the exiles and the Kurds, and that's why the term external was used. And there was a major controversy within the administration, which is a major topic of the book, a major controversy over the degree to which it was prudent for the United States government to work with the externals before the war. And my view was that if we're going to fulfill the president's desire to have a strategy, as he put it, of liberation rather than occupation, we should make a maximum effort to get Iraqis involved in the actual planning for the war, and laying the foundation for a post-war political transition, and maximize the role that we can assign to the Iraqis.
And who were some of the externals?
The externals were Jalal Talabani, the Kurdish leader Barzani, the other Kurdish leader Ahmed Chalabi, Iyad Alawi from the Iraqi National Accord Organization, Baram Saleh. I mean, a number of people who are now major figures in the Iraqi government and who have been playing a role together with the so-called internals, the Iraqi leaders who have been able to surface. There was no political leadership in Iraq other than the Baathists when Saddam was in power, but there have been some, in what we would now call internals who have also come to play a role in Iraqi politics since Saddam's overthrow.
Is there conflict between the internals and the externals themselves?
There really has not been, and it's been, I mean, one of the points that I make in the book is this controversy over working with the externals and the projection that State Department and CIA officials made that there would be a major political divide in post-Saddam Iraq between the externals and the internals, that hasn't come to pass. And in fact, the notion that that would be a significant factor in post-Saddam politics has really been disproved by events. And so what that suggests is the arguments that were made against our working closely with the externals were really bad arguments, as it turns out. Now, my office had said all along that we didn't think that the skepticism about working with the externals was well-grounded. We were in favor of working with them. We wanted the Iraqis to play a larger role in their own political future, the governance of their own country immediately after Saddam Hussein was overthrown. That was opposed by other people within the U.S. government and created policy problems that I think resulted in some significant errors that we made in Iraq.
You write extensively again here in the book that the State Department and the CIA both thought that Ahmed Chalabi was the Defense Department's guy, that he's who you wanted to be in charge. That was widely reported in the media. Can you see where, though, given what you write and what was in the media, that people would presume that that was the case?
I do, and I mean, it's not true. The Defense Department was not trying to anoint Ahmed Chalabi, as many people accused us of. Secretary Rumsfeld had a principle against trying to pick other countries' leaders. He believed that that the best leaders for another country would emerge from just the processes, the political processes that would occur as soon as the opportunity for politics was given to the Iraqis once Saddam was removed. And he was dead set against the idea that we would pick their leader. We did not have a policy of trying to anoint Chalabi, but we were accused of that. What seems to be the case, and I must say I learned a lot about this in the retrospective work of doing the research from my book, because I found the whole process while I was living through it somewhat mysterious, why people kept accusing us of this even though it was not our policy and we kept denying it. And it seemed that the more Secretary Rumsfeld and Paul Wolfowitz and I and others in the department denied that we were trying to anoint Chalabi, the more people who believed in it as a conspiracy were saying, wow, they're covering their tracks. But the fact is we were not trying to anoint him. And I think the clearest proof of that is that there were two main people put in charge of political transition in Iraq, General Garner and then Ambassador Bremer. And they have both made clear that neither was ever asked to appoint Chalabi. And in fact, they both made it clear that they didn't particularly care for him and they shunted him aside. And so there really was no plot to anoint Chalabi, but it's quite clear from my research that there were a lot of people who asserted it and believed it. And I mean, I hope that my book helps correct